They once ruled the WWE ring, larger than life and unstoppable. But now, they're trading belts for bars. These wrestlers went from heroes bathed in spotlight to cautionary tales trapped in cold, grim cells. Some spiraled out with crimes as wild as their in-ring personas. Others shocked everyone with quiet, devastating falls from grace. Buckle up as we expose the WWE stars who are currently rotting in jail and the jaw-dropping reasons why. Which legends hit rock bottom the hardest? Which ones still refuse to admit the truth? Get ready to dive into a side of wrestling you never thought you'd see. Teddy Hart, the Hart family's troubled star. Teddy Hart was once wrestling's golden boy, a prodigy from the legendary Hart family, which produced icons like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and even Roddy Piper. As the youngest wrestler ever signed to WWE, his future seemed set for greatness. But instead of carving out a Hall of Fame-worthy career, Hart became a repeat offender, racking up more arrests than championships. Over the years, he's been in and out of jail for a laundry list of charges: DUI, auto theft, evading arrest, and drug possession with intent to distribute. Things escalated in 2020 when Hart violated his bail conditions and was charged with assault, landing him behind bars without bail. Even after his release, he didn't stay out of trouble for long, getting arrested again for evading police, drug possession, and allegedly assaulting a disabled person. And if that wasn't enough, he found himself right back in handcuffs in 2021, facing many of the same charges. 4 arrests in 1 year. At this rate, Hart's biggest fight might be staying out of a jail cell. Brian McGee, a crime that shocked wrestling. Unlike Teddy Hart, Brian McGee wasn't a household name. Wrestling under D.T. Porter and Donovan Ruddock, he had the athleticism and potential to rise through the ranks. But instead of making headlines for championship wins, McGee became infamous for one of wrestling's most shocking crimes. In 2013, McGee's career and his freedom came to an abrupt end after a violent altercation with his girlfriend in their Florida home. But what made this crime even more horrifying was what he did afterward. He posted pictures of the crime scene on social media. If that wasn't reckless enough, McGee then led police on a high-speed chase before eventually being caught. The evidence against him was undeniable, and he was sentenced to life in prison. For someone who once seemed destined for stardom, McGee's legacy now serves as a grim reminder that not all wrestlers make it to the Hall of Fame. Some end up in a prison cell instead. Tammy Sunny Sitch was once one of the brightest stars in professional wrestling, a trailblazer in the WWE's Diva era, known for her beauty, charisma, and undeniable presence. In the mid-90s, she was considered one of the most promising women the WWF had ever seen, capturing the attention of fans worldwide. But behind the glamorous spotlight, Sunny was battling demons that would eventually drag her down a much darker path. Substance abuse, legal troubles, and a series of personal conflicts, including a restraining order filed by her own mother, set the stage for her shocking downfall. What followed was a staggering descent into crime and addiction. Between 2012 and 2013 alone, Sunny was arrested 6 times for third-degree burglary, disorderly conduct, and multiple violations of a protective order, leading to a 114-day jail sentence. But her troubles didn't stop there. In 2013, she was arrested 3 more times for DUI, so intoxicated that she later claimed she had no memory of the arrests. Things only spiraled further when, in 2017, she violated her parole for failing to make court-ordered payments, leading to yet another stint behind bars. Just months later, she was caught yet again for driving offenses, this time with 2 outstanding warrants already in her name. By 2020, any hope of a fresh start was long gone. A high-speed police chase, another parole violation, and a domestic violence restraining order breach sealed her fate. Sunny's parole was officially revoked, and today, she sits behind bars once the golden girl of wrestling, now a cautionary tale of a career consumed by chaos. Hardbody Harrison, real name Harrison Norris Jar, wasn't exactly a wrestling legend. He was better known for losing most of his matches in WCW. But before stepping into the ring, he had a much different role, a Gulf War U.S. Army veteran, serving during Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. His wrestling career never quite took off, and unfortunately, his post-wrestling life took a much darker turn. In 2005, Harrison was accused of crimes so horrific they shocked even those familiar with wrestling's most troubled figures. Posing as a savior, he lured vulnerable women in with promises of financial help and housing, only to trap them in his homes in Cartersville. According to reports, these women were forced into a bizarre, abusive system, performing endless chores under his strict control. But that wasn't the worst of it. Those who broke his rules or refused to comply found themselves in debt cycles they could never escape. It wasn't until one brave woman reported him to a police officer that the horrifying truth unraveled. During his trial, Harrison made the baffling decision to represent himself in court. His defense: he claimed the women were simply training to be wrestlers and that he was helping them get clean from substance abuse. The jury wasn't buying it. In 2007, Hardbody Harrison was sentenced to life in prison, marking one of the most disturbing falls from grace in wrestling history. Alberto Del Rio, born Jos Alberto Rodriguez Chucuan, a former mixed martial artist turned pro wrestler, he made history as the first Mexican-born WWA champion, capturing both the WWE Championship and World Heavyweight Championship twice each. Before his WWE days, he wrestled under the name Dos Caras Jr. in Mexico and even held the CMLL World Heavyweight Championship, proving his skills far beyond just the American wrestling scene. But despite the gold, the glory, and the larger-than-life persona, Del Rio's life outside the ring took a dark turn. In May 2020, Del Rio found himself in serious legal trouble after an alleged violent altercation with his girlfriend. Authorities arrested him on charges of assault and aggravated kidnapping, accusations that sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Though initially released on bail, things escalated when a grand jury indicted him on 2 felony charges. If convicted of first-degree aggravated kidnapping, Del Rio could be staring down a sentence of anywhere from 5 to 99 years, or even life in prison, along with a fine of up to $10,000. A second-degree conviction would still carry a potential 2 to 20-year sentence, a staggering fall from grace for a man who once stood at the top of the wrestling world. As of now, Alberto Del Rio remains in legal limbo, waiting for his fate to be decided. From championship gold to courtroom battles, his story serves as a harsh reminder that not all victories happen inside the squared circle. Buck Zumhofe, from wrestling to a 25-year sentence. Buck Zumhofe was once a recognizable name in the wrestling world, known for his rock star persona, complete with a boombox in hand and a flamboyant attitude. Trained by Vern Gagne, he shared the ring with legends like Ricky Steamboat, Scott Irwin, and the Iron Sheik. During his WCW days, he was part of the Rock and Soul Connection, teaming up with Iceman King Parsons. But while he entertained fans inside the squared circle, his real-life actions were anything but entertaining. Zumhofe's history with the law stretches back decades, and his crimes are beyond disturbing. In the late 80s, he was convicted of misconduct involving a minor and served 3 years in prison. But instead of reforming, he doubled down on his crimes. In 2013, his own daughter came forward, exposing years of horrific abuse. This time, Zumhofe was hit with 12 felony counts of criminal misconduct, resulting in a 25-year prison sentence. But if you thought he took his punishment like a man, think again. Instead of facing the consequences, Zumhof tried to flee the courthouse the moment his verdict was read, an act of sheer desperation that ended with him being tackled and restrained by officers. That little stunt? It earned him an additional charge. Today, the former wrestler sits behind bars, a far cry from the days when he carried a boombox and entertained crowds. Brett DiBiase, the $1 Million Scandal. Brett DiBiase comes from wrestling royalty, a third-generation wrestler, and the son of the legendary $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Though he never reached the heights of his famous father, Brett had a promising start in WWA's developmental system, Florida Championship Wrestling. But after a knee injury cut his wrestling career short, he transitioned into a role as a referee. What no one expected, however, was that his most infamous moment wouldn't happen inside the ring, it would happen inside a courtroom. After retiring from wrestling, DiBiase found himself in a high-profile government position tasked with distributing public funds to help low-income families in Mississippi. But instead of helping those in need, he became a key player in what authorities have called the largest public embezzlement scheme in Mississippi's history. DiBiase falsified reports, invoices, and documents to receive $48,000 in fraudulent welfare funds, money that was supposed to go to struggling families. And where did that money actually go? To fund his own stay at a luxury rehab center in Malibu while he was battling an opioid addiction. Authorities eventually uncovered the massive scheme, which saw more than $4 million in government funds embezzled. 6 people, including Brett DiBiase, were arrested. Facing serious charges, the former WWE talent pleaded guilty to fraud, agreeing to repay the stolen funds and cooperate with investigators. While his final sentence has yet to be determined, DiBiase could be looking at years behind bars, a far cry from his once promising career in the wrestling world. I'd love to know what you want to learn next. Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll answer them in the next video. As the echoes of the steel gates close behind them, the stories of these 7 WWE superstars serve as a stark reminder that even the brightest lights can falter. Each one, in their own way, has faced the consequences of their actions, but their struggles are not just about their mistakes. They reflect the complex nature of fame, power, and the human condition. The illusion of invincibility that fame creates can be blinding, but in the end, it is only a temporary shield. These individuals, once revered by millions, have fallen from grace due to their involvement in serious crimes. Whether it be violent outbursts, substance abuse, or more sinister illegal acts, their actions are not excusable by their celebrity status. The fact that they once held championship belts or sold out arenas does not entitle them to a pass from the law. No matter how much talent or recognition one possesses, everyone is bound by the same laws. Their fame may have made their offenses more public, but it has not made them any less criminal. This is a truth that everyone, famous or not, must come to terms with. While society may glorify the lives of stars, we must never forget that they, too, are human. And with that, humanity comes the responsibility of facing the consequences of their decisions. These superstars may have once been larger than life in the ring, but outside of it, they are mere mortals, subject to the same legal framework that governs us all. Their celebrity may have afforded them luxuries and opportunities, but it does not offer immunity from justice. Let this be a wake-up call for anyone who believes that fame, power, or wealth can shield them from accountability. The truth is, fame does not make someone untouchable. These 7 athletes have fallen hard, and their downfall is proof that the price of glory is not always paid in victories, but sometimes in the hard lessons learned when one is forced to face the consequences of their actions. Think your favorite actresses are all glitz, glam, and red carpet perfection? Think again. Some of Hollywood's brightest stars have swapped their designer gowns for orange jumpsuits and not for a movie role. From high-profile scandals to shocking crimes, these women went from a list to inmate real fast. So what exactly landed them behind bars? And did they survive the downfall? Buckle up, because this is where fame meets felony. Abby Lee's Wild Ride. Abby Lee Miller, the woman who made Dance Moms a cultural phenomenon and turned elite-level dance into a battlefield of tears, tantrums, and technique. Her Abby Lee Dance Company wasn't just a studio. It was a pressure cooker for tiny prodigies and their overzealous parents, all while Abby barked orders like a Broadway general. But while she built stars on screen, behind the scenes, her finances were in a full-blown pirouette of disaster. In December 2010, she filed for bankruptcy, drowning in nearly $500,000 in tax debt. By 2015, the drama moved from the dance floor to the courtroom. Abby was charged with fraud, accused of hiding income, making false bankruptcy declarations, and conveniently forgetting to file her taxes. With 20 felony counts stacked against her, she faced up to 5 years behind bars and fines that could fund an entire season of dance competitions. After some legal pas-de-deux, she struck a plea deal and on May 9, 2017, was sentenced to 366 days in federal prison, a fate far less severe than others in similar legal trouble. On top of that, she was slapped with a $200,000 fine for her financial missteps. Abby did her time at Victorville Federal Correctional Institute in California before transitioning to a halfway house and ultimately securing an early release on May 25, 2018, thanks to good behavior. But was she humbled? Not exactly. In a sit-down with Good Morning America, she brushed it off as a joke, claiming the experience only made her stronger. Because if there's one thing Abby Lee Miller knows how to do, it's putting on a show, whether it's in the studio or behind bars. Amy Locane's tragic turn. Mention Amy Locane, and most people instantly recall her days on Melrose Place. But beyond that, she shared the screen with Hollywood heavyweights like Matt Damon and Brendan Fraser in School Ties, 1992, and even played Johnny Depp's love interest in Cry Baby. A promising career, absolutely. But in 2010, that promising career took a devastating detour. On June 27, 2010, Locane was speeding at 85 km/h in a 56 km/h zone when she crashed into another vehicle, killing a passenger on impact. When tested, her blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the legal limit. By December of that year, she was charged with aggravated manslaughter and assault by automobile. In November 2012, a jury found her guilty of vehicular homicide, and she was sentenced to 3 years in prison, a punishment many deemed shockingly light. She served her time at Edna Mayhem Correctional Facility for Women, walked free in June 2015, and likely thought it was all behind her. But the justice system wasn't done. In September 2020, after appeals and legal battles, a judge ruled her original sentence was too lenient. This time, she was slapped with an 8-year prison term, with at least 6 years behind bars before parole is even an option. A Hollywood star turned cautionary tale. Shannon Richardson's shocking scheme. Shannon Richardson had small roles in The Vampire Diaries and The Walking Dead, but her real claim to fame? Sending poison-laced letters to some of the most powerful men in America. Life wasn't exactly easy for Shannon. Her mom abandoned her when she was 2, and she was raised by her father. She made a modest living from bit parts on TV and married 3 times. But it was during her 3rd divorce that things took a wild turn. Furious at her soon-to-be ex, she decided to frame him for a crime that could have landed him in serious trouble. In May 2013, Shannon mailed rice-and-laced letters to then New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, the director of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and even then, President Barack Obama. After sending the letters, she called the cops and tried to pin it all on her husband. But the authorities weren't buying it. After a quick investigation, they arrested her on June 7, 2013. Facing federal charges, Shannon cut a plea deal in November 2013, admitting guilt in exchange for a reduced sentence. Even so, she was hit with an 18-year prison term, ordered to pay $367,222 in restitution, and required to undergo psychological treatment. She's currently serving time in a Texas federal prison, with a release date set for November 18, 2028. Until then, just counting the days. Remy Ma's Bronx Battle. Remy Ma, real name Reminisce Mackey, is more than just a rapper. She's a force. With roles in Queen of the South and as a host on P. Diddy's State of the Culture, she's proven her versatility beyond the myth. But let's be real, her claim to fame comes from bangers like Lean Back, all the way up and Conceited, tracks that made her a rap heavyweight. With 3 Grammy nominations, she's got the accolades to match her bars. Born and raised in the Bronx, her childhood wasn't easy, but she turned struggle into fire, spitting rhymes so sharp they cut through the noise. But then came July 13, 2007. In the early morning hours, Remy was outside a Manhattan deli when things got heated. She accused an acquaintance of stealing $3,000 from her purse, and the argument escalated fast. In the chaos, she pulled out a gun, fired a shot, and then rummaged through the woman's bag looking for the missing cash. Instead of running, she walked into a police station and turned herself in. Things only got worse a month later when she was accused of orchestrating an attack on the boyfriend of a witness from the shooting. By March 27, 2008, the verdict was in guilty of illegal weapon possession, assault, and attempted coercion. The sentence? 8 years in prison, served at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women in New York. After 6 years behind bars, Remy was released on August 1, 2014. Since then, she's been reclaiming her spot at the top, because if there's one thing about Remy Ma, it's that she always finds a way back up. Lil' Kim's street survival. No list of rap's baddest icons is complete without Kimberly Denise Jones, better known as Lil' Kim, the queen of Brooklyn attitude and hip-hop royalty. Rapper, model, actress, and TV personality, she carved out a name in an industry that rarely made space for women like her. But Kim wasn't handed anything as a teen. She was forced to survive on the streets, hustling until she caught the attention of the Notorious B.I.G., who took her under his wing and helped her rise to mainstream fame. By 1996, she dominated the rap scene with her debut album Hardcore, followed by the Notorious K.I.M. and La Bella Mafia. She even landed movie roles, starring in films like Those Who Walk in Darkness and Superhero Movie. But if there's one thing true to Lil' Kim's brand, it's controversy. In March 2005, she was found guilty of perjury and conspiracy, serious charges that carried a possible 20-year sentence. The case stemmed from a 2001 shootout outside Hot 97 Studios, where members of her crew clashed with Capone and Noriega's entourage. When questioned under oath, Kim lied, claiming she didn't know where her co-manager and bodyguard were during the incident. The problem? Surveillance footage told a different story, exposing her deception. By July 2005, the verdict was in 1 year behind bars, a $50,000 fine, and 3 years of probation. She served her time at Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia, proving that even hip-hop royalty isn't above the law. But if there's one thing about Lil' Kim, it's that she never stays down for long. Martha Stewart's insider fall. Martha Stewart, business mogul, TV icon and the queen of domestic perfection. With her empire-spanning best-selling books, TV shows like Martha Stewart Living, 1993-2004, and Martha, 2005-2012, and a brand synonymous with luxury homemaking, she became one of the most powerful women in media. But for all her success, there's a reason she made this list. Martha Stewart was once an inmate. It all started in December 2001 when she received a top-secret stock tip, a heads-up that Clone, a pharmaceutical company, was about to tank after failing to secure FDA approval for a cancer drug. Armed with privileged knowledge the public didn't have, Martha dumped her shares before the crash, saving herself from a 16% stock plummet the very next day. But insider trading has a way of catching up with people, and the media went wild. By June 4, 2003, the government filed 9 charges against her, setting the stage for a high-profile trial that had the public hooked. In March 2004, the verdict was in guilty of lying to federal investigators, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. By July, she was sentenced to 5 months in prison, 2 years of probation, and a $200,000 fine, a slap on the wrist for a woman worth millions. In true Martha fashion, she even tried to handpick her own prison, but ultimately served her time at Alderson Federal Prison Camp, famously known as the cushiest jail in America. She walked free in March 2005, trading herself for house arrest, and proving that even a scandal couldn't keep Martha down for long. Allison Mack's dark descent. For years, Allison Mack was best known as Chloe Sullivan, Superman's loyal sidekick on Smallville. Born in July 1982, she started her career in commercials before landing roles in Seventh Heaven and eventually Smallville, where she became a household name for 9 seasons. But her real-life story took a far darker turn, one that landed her in handcuffs and facing decades behind bars. It all started in 2010 when Mack was recruited into NXIVMA's so-called self-help and executive coaching group that turned out to be a highly secretive, abusive cult. By April 20, 2018, the FBI had had enough. Agents arrested Mack in Brooklyn, charging her with forced labor conspiracy, trafficking conspiracy, and even immigration fraud for arranging a fake marriage. But the most shocking accusation? She branded women with her initials, enslaved them under the guise of empowerment, and manipulated them into submission. By April 2019, Mack pled guilty to racketeering charges, striking a plea deal in a desperate attempt to lessen her sentence. While she was out on bond for a time, there was never any doubt she was headed to prison. The final verdict: 3 years behind bars, a $20,000 fine, and a legacy forever tainted by one of the most disturbing scandals in Hollywood history. Teresa Giudice's fraud fallout. Reality TV royalty Teresa Giudice, best-selling author, Real Housewives of New Jersey star, and a woman who knows how to flip a table, ended up flipping her own life upside down when she and her husband got busted for fraud. On July 29, 2013, Teresa and Joe Giudice were formally charged with bank fraud, mail fraud, and wire fraud, accused of exaggerating their income for loans while hiding assets during bankruptcy filings. To make things worse, Joe also failed to file tax returns from 2004 to 2008, making Uncle Sam very unhappy. The couple cut a plea deal, admitting guilt to 41 charges, and on October 2, 2014, the sentences came down: 15 months for Teresa, 41 months for Joe, and a hefty $414,000 fine. Teresa served her time at Danbury Federal Correctional Institution in Connecticut from January 5, 2015 to December 23, 2015. But the real bombshell: Joe, not a U.S. citizen, was deported after completing his sentence. The message was clear: cheating the system comes at a cost. And with that, another reality TV scandal made its way into the history books.